So, hello everyone. In this episode of the Marketers Podcast, we are speaking with Sabina Hajieva. She's a creative professional working at the intersection of design, branding, and digital creativity. Sabina's work focuses on creating engaging visual experiences through branding, illustration, and digital design. Through her career, she has contributed to projects that combine creativity with strategic communication, and she's been helping brands and organizations express their identity through truly thoughtful design. And her work reflects the evolving role of designers today, which is a very important thing, where creativity, storytelling, and technology increasingly come together to shape how brands communicate with their audiences. Sabina, before we dive into design and creativity, first of all, I'd love to know if I have pronounced your surname correctly. Was it well said?
Ursula, thank you very much. It was very well said. Thank you very much for such great introduction. Yeah, Sabina Hajieva, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, so let's dig into the first question because we'd love to know how you would describe yourself, what you would say about yourself beyond your work as a designer.
What can I say about myself? Outside of work, I'm someone who pays a lot of attention to details. I love traveling, but I'm not the one who will just walk the city with uncomfortable shoes. I'm just visiting some interesting places. I'm sitting in the cafes, and I love to observe. I observe the things, not seeing small things. For example, why one place feels warm and alive and another feels empty, even if the cafes, for example, they look almost the same. That kind of observation genuinely interests me. I like understanding why certain spaces, objects, or experiences create emotion. I often share these thoughts on LinkedIn. I have my own LinkedIn profile with a lot of followers, and they always comment my posts. It's like, it's not like strategical marketing posts. It's something about human emotion, very interesting insights. So I prefer connecting everyday things with business ideas. For example, I might write about a perfume, a street, hotel lobby, or even just a shadow on the wall, and then connect that to branding, connect that to mood, consumer perception. I think I do that because my work in tech can be very abstract, So outside of work, I'm drawn to things that feel tangible and human. So if I had to describe myself simply, I'd say I'm observant, curious, and probably incapable of switching my brain off. But honestly, I'm okay with that.
I think we are the same person. What first inspired you to pursue a career in design and visual communication?
It didn't start with some, dramatic, it's my destiny, it's my calling moment. It was actually much simpler. I started noticing how quickly I judged brands before I had any real information about them. For example, opening website and see product and instantly think this feels premium, this feels trustworthy or cheap or confusing. And the interesting part is that reaction happens before you've even read anything. That really fascinated me. I realized design and visual communication are not just decoration, and they shape emotion before logic even enters the room. I became really interested in the gap between what a product actually is and how it feels at first glance. Before, sometimes a strong product just looks weak, and sometimes average product looks much better than it really is. And a lot of that comes down to visual language. That became especially important later in tech. The invisible things market That is data, platforms, analytic systems. So in those cases, design does even more heavy lifting because people need to feel clarity and trust before they understand the technical details. So I think what inspired me most was the power of first impression, that silent moment before the message begins. And the design has already said something.
Wow, I've been doing plenty of research about you, and I understand that you worked with different creative agencies during your career. So, what were some of the most valuable lessons you've learned from those experiences?
Really, I have very huge experience working with different creative agencies, and one of the biggest lessons I learned from working with them is that personal taste and effective communication are not always the same thing. Like marketers, I've had moments where I completely fell in love with some kind of idea. It looks perfect to me, elegant, polished. Yes, this is brilliant. And then we tested the version which is simpler, and it performed much better. That was painful, but very useful. It taught me that the goal is not to protect your favorite idea like it's your firstborn. The goal is to solve the problem. A good agency is valuable not because they say yes to everything. It really happens very often when agency says yes to your idea, but it's not the best way. They should challenge you. They bring an outside eye, and sometimes that's exactly what you need, because when you are too close to a brand, you stop seeing it clearly. Another thing I've added to this process now is AI, this innovative thing. I like using it before I even brief agency. It helps me to test rough concepts, messaging directions, and visual logic early, so I can eliminate weak ideas before they become expensive ones. That makes collaboration much better, much more comfortable, because then the conversation is less about opinions and more about clarity. So I always let agencies to challenge me, because in the end, the cleanest, smartest solution is usually not the one with the biggest ego attached to it.
Well, you read my mind because I was going to ask you about AI and the new digital tools that are basically transforming the creative industry. Some people say it's a great thing, some people say it's not such a great thing. How do you see these technologies influencing the future of design?
As I said, yes. I'm reading your mind. I'm actually very positive about AI, and I think it's one of the most useful creative shifts we've had in a long time, if it's used properly. For me, AI is not a replacement for creativity, it's an accelerator. It helps teams move fast, test more directions, and explore more ideas that might have taken much longer before. That part is very exciting for me. Instead of, for example, spending days visualizing one possible route, you can now test 10 in a short amount of time. But there is also a downside, a small one, and we can already see it, because sometimes we see too perfect, too polished, technically impressive things, but they look very similar to each other. I think the future of design will depend less on who can generate. The most and more important is who can choose the best. Taste and human become more important. AI can give you options, but it cannot give you instinct. So it can tell you, for example, which idea has emotional truth or which one actually feels right for a specific audience. It's a very strong tool, but not the brain of the operation.
And that completely challenges the idea that AI is going to replace human beings. Because AI is there to help human beings, but not replace us.
Yeah, never.
When you start a new branding or illustration project, what does your creative process usually look like?
All the processes usually start with one question: what should people feel first? Because if the emotional entry point is wrong, the rest of the message has a much harder job then. For example, in telecom, we once worked on high volume data packages. The obvious route would have been the usual one, like big price, big numbers, loud offer, aggressive, basically visual panic. But I didn't want the audience to feel pressure. I wanted them to feel abundance. So instead of building the communication around price, we build it around the feeling of getting a lot. We created visual full of digital icons and the layers, content, apps, movement, color, everything. Something that felt overflowing, like plenty of things at once. And the idea was simple. Don't tell people that is a lot. Let them feel it. It's a visual language. I do the same even with my own content. If everything around me is too polished, too corporate, I look for something human that makes people pause, feel, think. So once you know the feeling, the creative direction becomes much easier.
So, looking back at your career so far, because you have a very long career ahead of you, but let's take a look back at what you've done so far. What project or experience has been the most meaningful to you?
It was the project for the deaf and hard of hearing community. This project went far beyond marketing in the traditional sense. We didn't just launch a product, we created a real service that helped people communicate more independently, which is very important for these people. That included telecom products and live video hotline. Customers could connect with sign language interpreters in real time from stores or from their phones. And for me, that shifted the meaning of the work that I do completely. In telecom, we often talk about connection in a very technical way, coverage, speed, service. But this project, it reminded me that connection is also about being understood. I also felt strongly that the service should not look, overly medical or overly charity driven. I didn't want it to feel like a side project people should politely admire. I wanted it to feel modern, confident, and fully part of the brand, And our brand was very colorful, active, dynamic, so we kept the visuals bright, expressive, energetic. The message was not like, we are helping you. The message was, you have access. You have tools. You belong fully in this experience. This project made me think less like campaign manager and more like, somebody who is responsible for making a real experience which works for a real person.
So, you were just talking about connections, and I'm wondering for brands today, how important is strong visual identity in building trust and connection with audiences?
I think that strong visual connection is extremely important because people form an option before they understand the details. That's just how we work. Before everyone reads your copy, checks your pricing, or studies your product, they already feel something. They are already decided. Wherever you seem clear, you seem professional, thoughtful, or etc. Visual identity is doing that work silently all the time. And for me, consistency is a key part because when a brand feels visually inconsistent, people may not always be able to explain what's wrong. But they definitely feel that something is off. If the website looks polished, app looks unrelated, and social media has a totally different personality, trust drops. It creates a kind of subconscious glitch, especially in industries like telecom or tech. That matters really a lot. If the experience feels like partially fragmented, people start associating it with something unreliable. So I don't see visual identity as decoration. I see it like a trust ecosystem. It tells people we know who we are. We just care. When visuals are intentional, customers assume the product or service is intentional too. And that's powerful. Yes, strong visual identity matters a lot, and not because it makes brand pretty, but because it makes brand believable.
Absolutely. And in your current role, you are marketing AI and network analytic solutions to, you were just mentioning, telecom operations. What are some of the challenges of marketing highly technical products?
The main challenge with the highly technical products is that the more complex the product is, the more tempting it becomes to explain absolutely everything. And that's usually where communication starts to fail. In this kinds of conversation, you often have two audiences at once. On one side, it's technical experts who care about architecture, precision, and performance. And the other side, people like decision makers who care about impact, about value, and why this matters commercially. Their languages is different completely, but the mistakes is usually the same. Too much detail too early. At some point, I stopped asking, how do we explain this better? And I started to ask, how do we make people understand it faster? Because good communication, technical marketing is not about saying more. It's about finding the one clear idea that carries the rest. That's why concepts and symbols matter so much. If you can give people one strong mental model that, for example, they will understand, they will feel, they will relax. They stop feeling like they are being buried under information. So I'd say the biggest challenge is discipline, knowing what to leave out, knowing how to simply explain the product without making the product feel simplistic. Because in the end, even in technical industries, people still respond to the same thing.
How do you simplify highly technical information without losing its value?
Let's just talk about the cube example. Cube is the best example of how we simplify complexity, but also how we built meaning into design, because it wasn't just a random shape. In data in tech, information is often conceptually represented as structured units, almost like blocks or packets. And visually, the most natural way to express structure in space is a cube. So now, working in tech sphere, we were thinking how to make, these data packets just visibly very simple, understanding. And we thought, it will be a cube. It's stable, logical, measurable. It has clear edges, clear sides. So for us, the cube became a symbol of structured data, something you can understand, not just something abstract. And we built the whole brand around that idea. If you look at our visual language, everything is based on square or cubic elements, grids, blocks, modular layouts, because the product itself is about taking something chaotic data and turn it into something structured and usable. Then we took it one step further. We made the cube physical. So instead of explaining the system, we gave people something they could hold. And suddenly the idea became intuitive. You can feel it, you can see it, it's in your hands. You don't need a long explanation when you can see and feel the logic. That was the key insight. Don't just explain complexity, design it in a way people can experience it. Because when people feel it, they understand it much faster.
That's amazing. And you've also managed integrated marketing campaigns across digital, events, PR, and partnerships as well. You know about all of these things. How does a successful 360-degree marketing campaign look like today?
My view of 360 campaign has changed a lot. Early in my career, I thought 360 meant being everywhere. So it's different channels like digital, TV, outdoor, etc. Basically, now I understand that every possible format can be repeated in several layers. So it will be like another option of the 360 campaign. For me, a good 360 campaign is not about being everywhere. It's about feeling like the same brand everywhere. That's much harder, but much more effective. Especially now in B2B market, more channels do not automatically mean more impact. If the core idea is weak, it just means more people ignore you in more places. What works better is having one strong idea that travels well across all formats. Again, let's take a cube idea. Cube is a good example. Why? It started as a visual concept, then became a physical object, then became part of event storytelling, then became part of online communication. It wasn't random content for different channels. It was one idea showing up in different forms. And that's create memory. I think it's just my approach to 360 campaign now. People stop seeing it as campaign material and start feeling like they are interacting with something current. So today I think a successful 360 campaign is built around one clear central thought, one emotional tone, and one recognizable experience. That's what makes it feel whole.
So this is how you feel today after working for so many years. And in your career, you've worked with global brands in the FMCG and luxury sectors. So let's go back to the past because we know how you're thinking now. But what lessons from that experience still influence your work today?
Those two experiences, those two worlds taught me opposite lessons. FMCG luxury sectors, they are very different, but I use both these experiences now for tech. FMCG taught me speed and discipline. It taught me an idea is not clear. In a few seconds, it's probably not clear enough. In that category, attention is short. Competition is brutal and nobody is waiting patiently for your brand story. So you can learn to strip things down. You focus on what matters most. You become sharper. But luxury is another thing. Luxury taught me something very different. The power of restraints. In luxury, you don't need to explain everything. If you explain too much, you ruin part of the appeal. You create desire through mood, detail, confidence, and sometimes through what you don't say. Today, even when I work in tech, I still combine these two instincts. I use FMCG thinking to make the message quick, clear, and easy. And I use the luxury mindset to make sure that brand still has depth, atmosphere, and sense of intention.
You know what? I love what you said about competition being brutal because it seems like today's market is flooded with new brands every single day. And in your many roles, you've been responsible for brand positioning and messaging. So, what do you believe makes a brand truly stand out in a market as crowded as the market we have today?
I think a brand really stand out when it stops trying so hard to look like everyone else. A lot of brands are obsessed with being, trendier, more visible, but usually that just creates more noise. And noise is not the same thing as, memorability. The brands that stand out are the ones that feel like they actually mean something. For me, that starts with finding the human angle inside the business goal. Not just what we want to say, but why anyone should care. Then it continues with consistency, not just visual consistency, but emotional consistency. The same tone, the same feeling, the same logics ever there. One idea I really believe is most brands behave like mirrors, but the strongest, they behave like windows because mirror reflects back what people already expect to see. That's safe, but unfortunately it's forgettable. But windows, they show people something in a new way. It gives clarity, perspective, maybe even relief to make something feel simpler. It makes something more human, more meaningful. That's what I try to build because people may forget a slogan or a technical detail, but they usually remember the moment a brand helped them understand something real.
Sabina, I need to know, what would you say is the biggest mistake that companies make when marketing complex technology products?
The biggest mistake, I think, is prioritizing features over outcomes. Companies often try to prove how smart they are over explaining the complexity of their system. They're trying to be very complex. In reality, complexity confuses, and confusion kills sales. To be successful, I think we must flip the script, start with the result the client gets, not the mechanics of how you get there. Why should people care about it? What should they feel? If you can't explain the value in 30 seconds, you've already lost the audience, I think.
I love this, and I think we should have some practical and actionable advice for people. So, say you're launching a new tech brand today. What would be the first three things that you would focus on?
I'd focus on three things. It's proof over promises. That's the main thing. Cool slogan won't save you if you can't prove the product works. So I'd focus on case studies and real world results. The second is education over selling. Being the expert is very important. If the tech is complex, again, your job is to explain the problem better than anyone else. I'd focus on thoughtful leadership instead of just pitching a product. I'd create the best content in the niche to educate the market. When you are the one teaching the industry, people stop seeing you as a vendor and start seeing you as a partner. And the third one is no tech lives in vacuum. Biggest fear for B2B clients is, will this break my current system? I'd make sure the brand feels stable and integration ready. So you want to look like the missing piece of their puzzle, not a risky new experiment, In high tech, being reliable and easy to plug in is the most branding you can have.
Last question, I promise, but I am very interested in everything you've said about AI. So I want to know, what skills should marketers develop today if they want to stay relevant in a world that is increasingly driven by AI and data?
I think it is strategic intuition because now world is flooded with AI and data. So everyone has it. Everyone has AI. The real value isn't in collecting data, but in interpretation. Only human can understand context and empathy. I think that the winning skill is the ability to connect the dots, ignore the noise, and make bold decisions when the data is messy. So data gives you the what, but you have to prove why.
Sabina, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I've learned a lot. I am sure everyone who's been listening has learned a lot, and they probably have questions they want to ask you. So where can people find you if they want to talk to you?
Thank you very much, Ursula. You can easily find me on LinkedIn. My profile, Sabina Faradova Hajieva, and it will be very great if people will connect me, ask me questions. I will be very happy to answer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ursula. Nice to meet you and waiting for next sessions.